I came, and John, we came up from South Miami. I know you don't see people from Miami here very often, so they say that, I guess you know this, the two man-made items you can see from space are the Great Wall of China and the Dade-Broward line. So I actually crossed the line, and amazingly I can do this presentation in English. I know you're shocked. I want to tell you a little story, and it's actually a good Miami and Fort Lauderdale story because we do lots of work in travel and tourism businesses. I'm sure a lot of you do. And I want you to think about a hotel that you stayed at recently. And most people do the same thing. You check in the hotel, you give them all the ID. They never have your account number, right? Your frequent flyer number, so you always have to give them that. And then you go up to your room, and everybody does the same thing. So you walk in your room, you put your bags down, and you check out the bathroom, right? Now imagine if you do that. You go up to your room, you put down your bags, you walk into the bathroom, and right there on the toilet is a giant cockroach. Okay, now 20 years ago, if this were to happen, you see a giant cockroach, the first thing you do is scream. The next thing you do is you go to the house phone. Oh, I'm sorry, a house phone is a telephone with a wire that goes into the, you know about those? So you go to the house phone and you call the desk and they send somebody up and they get rid of the cockroach. And then normal things go on, and then you check out of the hotel and then you go back home. And then 3 weeks later, you realize you're still pissed that there was a cockroach in your hotel room. So what do you do about it?
Tell your friends.
Well, you tell your friends, but who's to say? You're absolutely right. But your friends, you tell 3 people. What's the chance they were going to go to Minnesota or wherever the hell it is? But you write a letter. Okay, a letter is a piece of paper, and you have to find a stamp. I'm not going to explain each one of these things, but you send the letter, and then like 3 weeks later, you get a postcard back from the hotel. And it says, "Dear sir or madam, thank you so much for bringing this unfortunate incident to our attention. We promise you it will never happen again." That's it. That's all you can do. Now, think about if it happened yesterday. You check in, you go upstairs, you drop your bags, and right there on the toilet, there's a giant cockroach doing the Macarena. What's the first thing you do?
Take a picture of it.
Take a picture of it. And you don't have to whip out your phone, Michael, because your phone was in your hand. Because let's face it, you walked into the bathroom like this. Right? Oh wait, I got something here on the other hand. All right, so you walked in, and then you take a picture, and then you write 6 letters. OMG.
WTF.
Exactly. WTF. There's a giant cockroach in my room at the XYZ hotel, and then you go, boom, and you post it. And instantly, your 500 Twitter followers, your 300 business contacts on LinkedIn, however many people you have on Snapchat, however many people you have on Instagram, and 5,372 of your best friends on Facebook all know about the cockroach at the XYZ hotel. But it doesn't stop there because they retweet it, or they repost it, or they like it. And let's face it, one of you has an idiot friend with a cockroach page on Pinterest, right? So they write an amazing example of the Malaysian howling cockroach spotted at the XYZ hotel, boom, and it goes around the world. And if the XYZ hotel is not even monitoring their social media, they don't even know this is going on. Yet what they do know is the Mandelbaums just canceled the bar mitzvah. The Rodriguezes just canceled the Kinsey, right? And their business is dropping. And you see, you all are laughing. But remember, our job, whether you're in advertising or design or digital marketing or public relations or what did I leave out, promotions, or you're a photographer or you're a videographer, our jobs, or your media, our jobs are to build brands for our clients. Yet, as we just proved, a couple kids with these things can destroy your client's brand overnight. And there's almost nothing you can do about it. Look what happened when United broke that guy's guitar. You all know, broke a guitar, they weren't willing to pay for it, so he came up with a song, because he was a guitar player, called United Breaks Guitars, and he did a video. The last time I looked, I think it had 12,800,000 hits. With him singing, United breaks guitars, and then he slides by on the luggage tray and he holds up his broken guitar. Can you imagine what that did to their brand value? The title of my last book was Building Brand Value. I think my next book should be called Destroying Brand Value, right? Because it's a whole lot easier. The problem is you can't get anyone to actually pay for that. And so what's happened is the whole world has changed. Most of us were asleep at the time. We were busy doing other things. The world has changed. So if you think it's tough to move your business now because business went from analog to digital, from digital to mobile, now it'll move from mobile to VR and God knows what's coming next. Imagine how tough it is when the number one thing you sell, which is building your customers' brands, whether you're taking photos, or you're doing PR programs, or you're designing ads, or you're doing sales and marketing programs, or you're doing videos, or you're publishing their stuff. Imagine how that changes when they realize that we have no control anymore. Remember what they said in The Wizard of Oz, right? Ignore the man behind the curtain. Because the man behind the curtain has disrupted our world. And before you laugh, think about if you were a taxi driver 5 years ago, and I gave this talk, you would have laughed, right? And then Uber disrupted your world. Or think about if you owned a hotel, and you would have laughed. Maybe not about the cockroach part, but about the rest of it. And then Airbnb disrupted your world, and that continues to happen. And it's happening to us as well. So the question then is, how do we change what we do in order to survive so we don't have to go do something else like drive for Uber? So I want to tell you a story about my first book. When my first book came out, it was called Brain Darts. And it was about a coffee table book about our work. It was a 10 or 20 years compilation of our work. And when it came out, I was invited by a big design conference to come speak at their conference on the book, to do like this, to do a book signing and to speak on the book. So it was in Chicago, so I went to Chicago, I took my family with me, and the night before, I went down to the expo where they have all the trade booths from the printers and the photographers and all the other folks. And in the back corner, there were two tables for the two authors. I was one, and the other was a guy named Steph Sagmeister. I don't know if you all know Steph Sagmeister, but back then he was like Mac Daddy designer. He was like, yes, he was the it boy of design. I met him because we had dinner the night before, and he was very tall, very handsome. He was German, so he was all dressed in all black, of course. And I'm a recovering blackaholic, by the way. This is great, just to be clear. And because he was German, of course, he spoke English better than I do. So we had dinner, and sitting on the other side, next to me was my wife. Sitting next to my wife was the marketing and design director of a very large, important design company that you would know and that we all want to work for, and every single one of us has one of their products in our pocket and on our desk, okay? But I can't tell you who they were. So I went down after dinner, and I made sure that all my books were organized perfectly, and I had all my Sharpies lined up, nice new sharp Sharpies, because, you know, they flatten out and they're kind of icky, and I'm a little meticulous, so I wanted it all done right. And then I went to bed. And the next morning, I got up early, I went for a run. I actually ran along Lake Michigan, which you all, whoever of you all are locals will appreciate this. It was the summer, and I went running, and about halfway out, this cold wind came off over the lake. I was sure that I was going to die. I'm not kidding you. I thought, okay, I have on like the little shorts and little t-shirt and nothing else. I'm just going to roll into a ball and die. I didn't, though. I survived. I kind of wish I had. It got worse. So I got back to the hotel. I'm getting ready to go downstairs. My daughter, who was 6 at the time, says, Daddy, can I go with you? I said, of course. So we hop in the elevator. We're holding hands. She's all excited. I'm all excited. We get down to the expo, and there's a line of people outside waiting to get in. So my daughter says to me, Daddy, are all these people here for your book? And I said, you know, I didn't want to be like really obnoxious. So I said, no, sweetheart, I'm sure many of them are here for Steph's book as well. And we go walking alongside these people to get to the back, where the books are lined up, just like they're lined up back there. And I'm just walking right through the aisle, and I'm trying not to make eye contact with anybody. Because, you know, I don't think I wrote the book, and I'm walking with my daughter, and it was awesome. And then we go around the corner, every single person in line is in line for Steph's book. There is nobody, I mean zip, in line for my book. So I sit down, Steph's there, he's signing books and shaking hands. And this was before camera phones, but you know, they're taking pictures. My daughter takes my Sharpies and she's drawing, and ordinarily I would say, you know, sweetheart, don't mush the points, but clearly that's not going to matter. And at At some point, though, she gets fed up, 6-year-old, and so she goes, and you'll know she's a 6-year-old my time, she went under the table, you know, they have that skirt on the other end, the pleated skirt, right? And she goes through that, she comes up and she goes up to people and she goes, come look at my daddy's book, it's really good. And then people are giving me that look, you know, if I was in Dane County, I would say it's that, you know, that pobrecito look, right? It's like, you poor son of a bitch. But now they're kind of going, hey, can you like get this girl off me? Because she's pretty aggressive. Come on, no, really. Come look at my daddy's book. It's really good. At this point, Steve Segmeister has no books left. He's gotten rid of all of his books. I want to kind of say, hey, here, take some of mine, right? And they're just doing the grip and grin and they're shaking hands and everything else. Now, here's what I didn't tell you. You know who Steph Sagmeister is now, right? I'm not worthy. You only kind of knew who he was back then. That was the book with him with all the stuff tattooed on him, right? It was also him naked, like Jesus Christ with stuff tattooed. So and he was a good-looking guy. But that's not the point. Both books were wrapped in plastic. They were completely wrapped in plastic. Nobody had any idea what was in his book. And nobody had any idea what was in my book. The actual quality of the work, it's not whose was better, and I'll admit now that I'm not bitter anymore. His book was better. But it wasn't that much better. Oh, I forget to tell you the worst part. So while nobody's buying my books and everybody's buying his book, my wife comes with the design director from the company she sat next to the night before because she had gone to the buffet, the breakfast buffet with our son, and she ran up to him and she said to him, why don't you come down again? I'm sure my husband would be happy to give you a book. Well, hell yeah, I'll give him a book. I have like 200 of them sitting behind me. So I didn't know what hit me then. I didn't know what happened, but I did figure it out later. Our books were exactly the same, right? They were both big, handsome coffee table books wrapped in plastic. We were both designers, tall and skinny, dressed in all black. One was from Chicago, one was from Miami Beach. There wasn't that much differentiation. The difference was you knew who he was, and nobody knew who I was. He had a brand, and they weren't buying a book. And let's be honest, many of you will not read this book. You should. It's really good. But many of you will not read it. The book is a souvenir. I'll prove to you how I know you won't read it, because when I got the paperback printer's proof, I brought it home and I showed my wife. I said, look, I got the proof. And she took the book. Wow, honey, this is awesome. And she flipped through it backwards, yes. But I think she stopped on every page. She went through the whole thing. She said, wow, that's a lot of words. Did you write them all? I said, yeah, honey, that's kind of the way it works. The book came out in September. I don't think she's ready yet. So don't feel guilty. You don't have to read it. It's good for balancing tables. You can press flowers. But the point is, it's a souvenir, right? It has a signature in it. And you go, oh, I went to this event. I got this really groovy, cool book. And, you know, you guys should tweet it and post it and put things on Amazon about how awesome it is. I would love that. But it's not about the words that are in it as much as it's the function of, not the function, it's the image of what the book does. It's the brand. And people bought his book because he had a brand. It was a way to touch the fire. People did not buy my book because I had no brand. And this happens time and time again. If I was braver, I would tell you how it just happened in the election, but I'm not ready to deal with that yet. So I want to go back to the previous election, 8 years ago, when Barack Obama ran against John McCain. Now, if you think of that election, there's no way Barack Obama should have beat John McCain. In hindsight, we know he did, right? And especially because I just told you that the book sold because of the awareness of the author. Well, Barack Obama had no awareness. He had been a senator in Illinois for a very short period of time. Before that, he was a community activist. Community means small, right? Whether you think it's good or bad is irrelevant. The point is, nobody really knew who he was. So if you look at awareness, because John McCain was a senator for since forever. And before that, he was a war hero. I think he was in the Crimean War or the Peloponnesian War, right, or something. So he had been around forever. So from awareness, everyone knew who this guy was. Nobody knew who this guy was. Then the second thing was their names. If you have a new product, you name products. It's very important, right? This guy's named John McCain. Have you ever heard a more American presidential name than John McCain? Sounds like George Bush. Sounds like Bill Clinton. sounds like John Kennedy, sounds like George Washington, right?
John Wayne.
John Wayne. He was not a president.
Yeah, still sounds
American though.
Still sounds good.
Fair enough. This guy's name, Barack Hussein Obama. Barack means blessing in Hebrew. How many of us in the room knew that? It's because I'm in South Florida. Okay, usually nobody knows except for me. Hussein. If I asked you for the top 100 names for the next president of the United States, how many would have Hussein on their list? How about if I gave you 200? How about if I gave you 1,000? You would have names like fish sticks, right? And before you would have Hussein. And Obama, what did they say? Even the people who liked him would mistake it for Osama bin Laden, right? So he doesn't win on awareness, and he certainly doesn't win on name, and then let's face it, we all know the 5 Ps. How about packaging? This guy looks like a president, right? White, he's no longer middle-aged, but old white bald guy. This guy did not, and we were told in America, anyone can grow up to be president, and let's face it, we did not believe it. He proved that it was actually true. If you went to Disney World, and you went to the Hall of Presidents, right, and you see the Adams boys, and then you see Andrew Johnson, and Lincoln, and Grant, and there's the Roosevelt boys, and the Bush boys. They got one thing in common. That's right. And you can sing the Sesame Street song, right? One of these things is not like the other. So, on packaging, I mean, yes, let's face it, some people voted for him for the packaging, but for the most part, that's not enough. So he loses on all 3, yet he won the presidency. Why was it?
The logo. And the tagline.
And the tagline. You remember the tagline?
Yes.
Yes, we can. Yes, we can. I personally believe it's the 3rd best ad line ever written. Now, do you remember this guy's tagline? You probably don't, because it sucked, but it was, I'm a maverick.
What?
Right, I'm a maverick. So first of all, it was all about him. I'm a maverick. Okay, he's a 70-year-old white guy. How can he be a maverick? A, and B, Maverick is a crappy car that Ford built. Top Gun.
Tom Cruise in Top Gun.
Was Maverick?
Only McCain crashed the plane.
Well, there you go. So this guy says, yes, we can. Yes is positive. We is inclusive. And can is aspirational. And the proof is that 67% of first-time voters voted for him. And you're not going to tell me that 70%, more than 2/3, of first-time voters knew the issues. But they were turned on by, again, the 3rd best ad line ever written. Yes, we can. Now, before you think I'm taking sides here, because I'm not, once he became president, his #1 issue was health care. And although we know that ultimately he got Obamacare, which now we're going to lose, the truth is he never talked about what it was, and so the pundits and the opposition decided. And Chuck Grassley in Iowa, the senator in Iowa, said, pulling the plug on grandma. And then, from Alaska, in an igloo, on Facebook, the Grizzly mom, Sarah Palin, 2 words, death panels. And death panels almost killed healthcare, and in fact removed the single payer, removed the prescription, removed the end of life. Even though all of those things were in George Bush's plan and in Mitt Romney's plan, it was not one side or the other. But again, it was this lack of positioning, exactly the same as my book. The positioning got him elected. The lack of positioning did not get him, ultimately, the healthcare plan he wanted. By the way, I was told by my publisher that I have to say, that's in the book on page 100. No, that's on page 20. No, that's 127. Okay, it's in the book. So, once again, if we understand that what we do can now be controlled by others that we have no control over, kind of like Russians hacking the election, right? We have no control over that. And we understand that our customers come to us for something that we're losing control of. And now you understand that having a brand sells things when the function is irrelevant. And you understand that when you don't do that, you don't win what you want. The question becomes then, how do you create these brands? And it's not just what you do for your clients. It's not just what you do for your customers. It's also what you do for yourselves. Because let's face it, if we had a client who came in, who walked in right now and said, hey, is this the AdFed? I got $1 million budget. I need some production. I need some design work. I need some stuff written. How many of us could do it? All of us? All right, look, here's a rule. This means yes. This means no. This is what the dinosaurs did in Jurassic Park, okay? How many of us would take the job?
Alone?
Well, no, you can job it out. I'll take the design work, it's okay. The point is we would all do it. And are some of us better than others? Probably. Do the clients know that? No. How many times do you bitch about that? Can you believe they hired that idiot? And that idiot can't design his or her way, or write his or her way, or photograph his or her way out of a paper bag. But the customer wasn't looking for function. The customer was looking for something else. And it's this something else that will change the way you run your own business, and it will change the way you run your customer's business. By the way, in case you need to leave, that's it right there. I mean, I'm the only idiot in history who wrote a book that you don't have to read if you read the cover. Because you could say, all about that, I got it. Okay, done. You remember the comedian Gary Shandling? He was kind of this nebbishy guy. He always wore all black. He had really long hair, and he was very nervous when he spoke. Now his hair is short, or he's dead. I forget which. But it's not good either way. But he did this. He did this here. It's a secret right here. We've been saving it for you. There's even a purse. And it matches. Look at that. See, you're always good with basic black, you see? So he told this story about this girl that he wanted to go out with. And he wanted to ask her out so badly, but he's a very nervous kind of guy, so he was always embarrassed to ask her out. But finally, he screwed up his courage, and he asked her out, and she said yes. And so now he had a date, and he was going to pick her up, and he, of course, freaked out about it all day. He didn't know what to wear, even though he wears the same damn thing every day. And then he picks her up, and he says, the minute she got in the car, he says, I started talking. He said, and I talked, 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 because I was nervous. And he said, when I talk about my hair. And he does this thing, with his hair while he's talking, and he said, so I talked about my hair, and I just kept talking about my hair. And finally, after about 2 hours, he finally figured out that she was probably getting bored. Which also shows you what a sensitive guy he is, right? So he says to her, I'm really sorry. I was so nervous about asking you out, and when I'm nervous, I talk, and when I'm nervous, I talk about my hair, but I really want to know about you, so I'm going to take a deep breath, and I'm going to have a sip of water. Calm down, because I want to know about you. So let me ask you a question. What do you think about my hair? And that's what we all do. When people bring us in to do work for them, we tell them what we can do. We talk about the computers we have, we talk about our design awards, se habla español, whatever it is that we offer, and they don't care. What they care about is themselves, exactly. And we need to change our pitch to be all about them. Stop talking about yourself. All of the stuff you have, your degrees, your equipment, your talent, those are RTBs, reasons to believe. Once you sell what you can do for them, then you can say, by the way, I can do that because I have this degree, and I have these talents, and I have this equipment, and these locations, and these people, and I've worked. But up front, who cares? Some of you know a friend of mine, if someone even asked me about him, so I'm going to tell you a story about him, Bob Berkowitz. Bob Berkowitz is a video producer in Dade County, in Miami. And Bob always flies first class because he tells me that he meets people first class. I don't meet anybody on airplanes. People don't talk to me. I think mostly it's because I have headphones and I'm on my laptop. But he flies first class because he always gets business. So he said, now this was years ago. He says he's in a plane and he's sitting next to a guy and he starts talking to him and he says, what do you do? And the guy says, I'm Tom Monahan from Domino's Pizza. This was before he had a plane, I assume, because I know that Tom Monahan must have his own plane now. And Bob said, oh my God, Domino's Pizza. I love Domino's Pizza. It's my favorite pizza in the world. And Tom Monahan says, no, it's not. And Bob says, yeah, it is. I love your pizza. And Tom says, come on. There's a little place in your neighborhood. They have a coal-fired oven, or they use buffalo mozzarella, or they use sprouted wheat for the crust. And Bob says, oh yeah, there's this Italian place. My wife likes it because of the peppers. He goes, right. I'm not your favorite pizza, he says, because I am not in the pizza business. So Bob says, what do you mean you're not in the pizza business? I get your pizza. I order it all the time. He says, when do you order it? He goes, I order it when my friends come over. I order it when my wife doesn't feel like cooking. The guy, Tom Monahan, says, that's right. I am in the, you invited your friends over to watch the game and you didn't tell your wife and there's no food in the house and she's pissed. Business. You're in, the kids are crying and they're hungry and there's no food in the house. Business. I'm in the, your wife just got home, she thought you made dinner, you don't know how to cook, she's pissed. Business. He says, why do you think we offer 30 minutes or it's free? He says, because more than 30 minutes, you can do something else. You can take a frozen pizza out of the oven. You can call that little Italian place that makes great pizza, but the kid never shows up with it and they always make a mistake, right? He says, within more than 30 minutes, you have lots of options. But under 30 minutes, the in-laws just showed up, there's nothing in the house. I can have food there in 30 minutes or less. I'm in the problem-solving business. And what we figured from that, because Bob didn't really understand it, I had to explain it to him afterwards. And those of you who know Bob, get it. But what we figured out afterwards was there's a big difference between what you sell and what you exchange for money. And we don't think about that very often. So what does Domino's exchange for money? Pizza. You give them $10, they give you a pizza, right? It just goes like this. But what do they sell? They sell your wife not being pissed at you. They sell you got the munchies and you need something bad, right? Whatever it is. But there's a big difference. Starbucks exchanges coffee for money. But what do they sell? A place to meet, a place to hang out, a place to get Wi-Fi. Because lots of people don't have that anymore. Volvo exchanges automobiles for money, right? But what do they sell?
Luxury.
Safety, exactly. You can even go a step further and say that they assuage the guilt of fathers who drive their BMWs too fast because they buy Volvos for their wives to take the kids out. Sexist, yes. True, also. In fact, if you think about all the car companies, they all do that. They all exchange automobiles for money. Honda sells simplicity, right? Honda, we make it simple. And it's simple and it runs. Toyota sells durability. Toyotas are appliances. If somebody's, I don't know, Camaro is faster or somebody's Corvette is faster, you don't care. If someone's BMW is more statusy, you don't care. If your Toyota does not start, you care because they sell dependability. Kia and Hyundai sell Asian dependability for less money. Now they're making sexier cars, but for a long time they didn't, right? Mercedes-Benz sells status. You can tell me about the engineering and the performance and all that, but come on, they sell status. Porsche sells performance. Ferrari sells old men picking up young women at Yolos, right? Once again, sexist, and not really true because Lamborghini sells old men picking up young women at Yolos. But it's a big difference between what you sell and what you exchange for money. If I ask you what you do, you're going to tell me what you exchange for money. Not after tonight, by the way, but before tonight. You're going to say, I'm a photographer. You're going to say, I'm a PR guy. You're going to say, I'm a photographer. And on and on and on. But that's not what you sell. Because how many photographers do we have in the room? 1, 2.
Video.
Videographer. Videographer, photographer.
30 times a second.
But what you sell is something very different. So then the question becomes, how do you figure that out? I'll give you an answer. Right? But a lot of our clients, because we often have to deal with CFOs, they want systems. So here, I'm going to give you the system that'll change the way you do business. You can use this. It's an algorithm to show them how to do it. You can use it, you just have to give me credit. But you don't have to give me credit like your competitor at another agency. You can say he wrote the book, all right? So there you go. It's very simple. It's the letter C, CC, yeah. 2, the number 2, CC. And you say, that's the formula we use to transform your business and bring it into the new world. CC to CC. CC stands for company-centric, 2, TO, consumer-centric. We go from being a company-centric company to a consumer-centric company. Who does that? Apple. When was the last time Apple talked about performance? Every other computer company talks about performance, which is called speeds and feeds, right? Megahertz, megawatts, half times, half-lives, all these things. Apple talks about how freaking cool you are because you have an Apple. Because they have gone from being company-centric to consumer-centric. And people tell the world who they are because they have Apple. Who in here has an Apple laptop? Most of you? Okay. When they first came out, videographers use Apple laptops?
All the time.
Photographers use them? Same thing. Okay. When they first came out, the Apple, you know, on the back of it, there's the glowing apple on this part right here. When they first came out, the Apple, when you closed it, it faced you, the user, because this was your computer, and Apple was talking to you, so the logo faced you. But when you opened it, it was upside down, but who cares? Unless you're looking in a mirror, you don't see that it's upside down, until Starbucks. Because you know, when you used to walk into a Starbucks, I am so sorry I didn't turn that off. You know that when you used to walk into a Starbucks, you would look and see who had Apple and who had like Dell or something, right? You don't have to admit it, but you know it's true. But the logos were upside down until some smart Apple guy, and they're pretty smart, figured out that it's more important to you to have people in Starbucks know that you're using Apple, so they turn them over. Now when you close it, it's upside down to you, but what matters is what it says to the world. We talked about all those cool cars, right? Have you noticed that because of technology, I think it's Moore's Law, every 5 years technological products are half as expensive, twice as fast or twice as powerful, and half the size. And if you think about like what you used to pay for memory or the size phones used to be, everything gets smaller and smaller with technology. Phones get smaller, right? Remember your first cell phone? The brick. It was called the brick. There you go. And then they had one called like the Razor, RZR. It didn't even have room for vowels because it was so small. Right? Or cameras. Cameras, when they first were invented right after the Civil War and the Victorian age, they actually were the wagon. And then you've all seen the Western movies, the John Wayne movies, the guy in the black would put his thing over his head, and it would explode, right? The camera was this big. And then they had Brownie cameras and Instamatic cameras, and now, again, cameras are actually inside your phone. They're so small. But one thing continues to get bigger, and that is, here's mine, the keys for these cars. It's in my pocket somewhere. Oh, maybe I put it in my bag. Anyways, it's the keys for the cars, right? You remember when keys were like flat, well, you wouldn't, but flat pieces of metal? And if I said to you, hey, can I borrow your car? You'd say, yeah, I'll leave the key under the mat. You can't do that now, because it'd be like Princess and the Pig, right? May I borrow this?
Yeah.
Right? Oh, you carry two of them. Wow.
My wife drives
Is that a key in your pocket, or you just... So, why are the keys to her, what's your name? Alejandra's cool Mini. Why is the key so damn big? Anyone have an idea? Multifunction, right. Because it opens the door, and I guess it turns the alarm off, whereas this has pictures of my children, the internet, 9,700 apps, and by the way, actually functions as a phone, and look at the difference. So I'll ask you again, why is the key so big?
So everyone can see it.
Exactly! It doesn't fit in my pocket, so when I go to lunch, I have to put it, and this is what people do, right? They set up their brand stack. So it's right there. It used to be either iPhone or BlackBerry. Remember that? Which was very clear. BlackBerry had buttons, so it meant business. I'm a business guy. I'm a BlackBerry. iPhones had glass. It was creative. But now, it's either this or Samsung or Gal, or except the Samsung ones explode. And then you have your, these are not, but you have your Gucci or your Prada glasses, right? And then your car. Because you can't drive your car into the restaurant. But the car tells people who you are. And when Alejandra goes out to her car and presses the button, what does her cool, groovy Mini do? It beeps and it flashes its lights. Right? It flirts with you. It goes, over here, I'm your Mini. You're hip and cool. Over here, I'm your Lexus. You're successful. Oh, here, I'm your Jaguar, right? It has no basis on the function. Her Mini doesn't get her to work and back any better than Michael's 2 Mercedes. What is that, Mercedes?
The Mercedes and a dog.
Made by Mercedes, or owned by Mercedes. Right? The function of the automobile is at this point irrelevant. If the car didn't work, I don't care how cool the Mini is. If it didn't get you to work, you wouldn't buy it. But you didn't buy it because it can get you to work, because all cars do it. All photographers take pictures, all videographers take videos, all magazines present work, all designers design, all writers write, bakers bake. That's why the function name is in the name of what we do, right? But we no longer have those names. I mean, people used to be named Baker or Goldsmith, right? There's not computer coder. There's not, I don't know, LinkedIn consultant. Hi, I'm Joe LinkedIn consultant. Right? That doesn't happen anymore because the function of what we do is irrelevant. It's an RTB. It's a reason to believe. You care about your gas mileage. You care that you can afford the car. You care about all that. But you didn't care about that until you thought the car was cool. And if it didn't work, none of those things would matter. How do you decide that? See, I'm doing the sales pitch, and y'all already have the book, so it's kind of a waste of time. That's in page 208, by the way. It's in the publisher. So then the question becomes, how do you figure this out? How do you know what it is that you're going to do? Because if you only do what your customer wants, you're just like everybody else. And here's where I want to tell you another story, and you'll appreciate this, most of you who live here. I actually was born here. I'm a native. In fact, I was saying outside, I tell people, my parents are from New York, Bronx and Brooklyn. My wife is from Cuba, and I was born here. I am as native as you can get, right? So I was born on Miami Beach. When I was a kid, we had black and white television. And my brother, sister, and I kept asking our parents for color TV. My dad told us that the reason we didn't have color TV is because Miami Beach did not have color electricity. Now, before you laugh at me for being stupid, you all are listening to me. I just want to make that clear. So the other thing is, some of you will remember, this is not all of you, but some of you remember that when we were kids, there were only 3 channels. There was NBC, CBS, and ABC, and then there was PBS after a while, which didn't really count if you were a kid, right? Because who cared? And when movies came out, you could see it in the movie theater, or you could see it like 10 years later on TV, once. A TV show, once. They'd play it once. And a TV show came out, and then, 12 months later, or 6 months later, they did a rerun? Once. There was no other way to see it. You couldn't pull it up on your phone. You didn't have phones. I mean, there was no other way. But there were a few movies that they showed every year. Miracle on 34th Street, right? Ben-Hur. What else? There were a few. It's a Wonderful Life. Wizard of Oz. Yes. Sound of Music. They showed those every single year. It's a Wonderful Life was at Christmas.
He got specials.
Ben-Hur, they showed, yeah, right, mom. So I was a huge Wizard of Oz fan. And I saw the Wizard of Oz every single year. Okay, so now I go away to college, University of Florida, and going to college when you first go is kind of like going to summer camp without counselors, right? So we're out having fun, doing stuff that finally is becoming legal, but I don't think it was at the time. I come back in the dorms, and my buddies are watching the Wizard of Oz. It's just starting. Oh my God, I love the Wizard of Oz. So I sit down and watch it, and it starts, you know the story, of course you've seen it a million times, right? And Dorothy, and she's unhappy, and the woman on the bike, and all that. And then the tornado comes, and it lifts up the house, and it lands in Munchkin Land, at which point I go, holy shit! Because it's in color. I didn't know. I just got goosebumps. That's a good sign. I didn't know it was in color. And think about this for a minute. If you only see it in black and white every single year, and you don't know better, it's like ingrained in my head right now. They have all these color references, which you don't think about, except maybe the art directors do. Yellow Brick Road, Ruby Slippers, Emerald City. They keep saying all these colors because I'm thinking that's how they make it seem real, right? Okay, so I am totally freaked out. And Munchkins are really scary in color, by the way. I just want to say. So I'm told, and did you know that the Munchkins, by the way, used to live in Hollywood? There's a little section right off 95. It's probably torn down where they have these little midget houses with little doors and little windows because a troupe of guys who were Munchkins lived there in the summer when they were in the winter rather because they were the circus in the summer. So I'm totally freaked out. And the story, and you all know the story, right? Dorothy goes on her way because she wants to get back home. And first she runs into, I think, the Scarecrow or the Tin Man. Scarecrow, is that right? And then the Tin Man, and then the Lion, and then they get attacked by trees. And then they get to the Emerald City. No, the monkeys aren't there. They get to the Emerald City, and they can't get in, right? And then why do they get in? Oh, that's a what? Horse of a different color. Another color reference. By the way, when they get in, the horse is actually purple. Who knew? I didn't know what color it was. I just knew it was a different color. And then they meet the wizard, and the wizard says, I can get you home, but first you have to go kill the witch, the other witch, right? Which, if you stop and think about it, how much of a wizard was he if he sends like a 12-year-old, a little tiny rat dog, and those 3 freaks to kill a witch? But they go. Then you have the flying monkeys, which still scare the bejesus out of me. Flying monkeys are freaking terrifying. If you ever see flying monkeys, do not call me. And then they go to the castle, and then you got the right? Those guys, which are pretty scary. And then the witch, is gonna win, but then they say, I'm melting, and then the witch dies, and then they go back, all the way back. And then they find out that the wizard is not actually a wizard. Remember I said earlier, ignore the man behind the curtain? The wizard's not really a wizard, which if you watch Washington, you're gonna see this to come true again. So the wizard's not a wizard, but he says, look, to the Tin Man, you want brains, so he gives him a diploma, which is about how much your college degrees are worth these days. And then the Scarecrow wants a heart, so he gives him a clock, because it ticks, which is, I think, a pretty pathetic trade, but what do I know? And the Lion wants bravery, so he gives him an award, and he has bravery. But he tells the little girl, I can't get you back home, because I came here in a balloon, I'm a schmuck just like you, we're stuck, it's over. But then Glenda, the good witch, shows up. Believe me, this is actually going somewhere. Glenda, the good witch, shows up, and what does she say? You had it in you all along. All you had to do was say, there's no place like home, right? Again, at which point Dorothy should have said, wait a second. So I kill a witch, then I go on this trip with these 3 freaks, then I get attacked by trees, flying freaking monkeys, those giant guys. I kill another witch, the wizard's not a wizard, and I had it in me all along, and you call yourself a good witch? Right? How pissed would you be? But she goes home, and then in case you weren't smart enough to understand the symbolism, the aunt looks like one of the witches, and the one uncle looks like the Scarecrow, and then of course the teacher comes by on the bicycle, and they even play the music. Then it says, by the way, in the credits, shot in Technicolor, which I guess I just had never seen. Or maybe I would have said, wait a second, something's going on here. But here's the thing. That movie was brilliant because it taught you everything you need to know about how you present yourself. If you already know to make it all about them, then the only other thing you need to know is that you had it in you all along. What your clients buy is not the function of what you do, because they can get that anywhere. They don't buy the equipment you have. They don't buy the services you offer. That's what they give you money for. What they buy is your vision. It's the unique way you look at what you do. It's why you are different than you and different than you and different than you. Everything else today is generic. This is now the United States of Generica. I can get anything, anywhere, anytime through this. I can order it and it will be here tomorrow. The thing I can't get is you or you or you or you. And you each have a vision, and you each have a style, and you each have something that nobody else can duplicate. And if you go all the way back to the beginning of my talk, because I told you I was actually making a point here, what they bought from Steph Sagmeister was not the book. That's what he exchanged for money. What they bought was him. What they did not buy was me. Because they didn't know who I was. And to be perfectly honest, I didn't have the backbone at the time to tell them. Today, if they say, what do we get from you? I say, you get me. You get the people I've put together. You get my team. You get my experience. You get my way of looking at things. Here's my experience. Here's what I've done. If you don't like what you see, guess what? You should go somewhere else. Because this is what we do. This is what my company does. This is what I do. If you read this book and say, this guy's an idiot, and you're free to do that, because then you read the book sometimes, that's okay. Go somewhere else. You each have something to offer. So, do I have enough time to show you one more thing? Yes, I have enough time. All right. So, I want to show you how this has been done throughout history. Because what happens is you go, oh yeah, that makes sense, but that's all 50,000 foot kind of stuff. And then you walk out and go, but how the hell do I do it? So I'm going to show you specifically how to do it. I want you to go back with me into the 1740s. We're going to meet with a guy named Johann Sebastian Bach. Some of you heard of him? Bach was a very famous composer, but he was not born a famous composer. He became one throughout his life. Just like John David is going to be a very famous author, because he just wrote his book. You can wave it around if you want. You don't have a copy, someone does. But he's not yet a famous author because he just wrote the book, right? So Bach wasn't a famous composer at first, so what he did was he taught music. And he taught viola, and he taught the harpsichord. And a lot of the little bits of music that he wrote for his students later on became his compositions. And he wrote a piece of music that you all know. It's called Minuet in G. When you were a kid, if you took piano lessons, you played Minuet in G. Any of you? Remember the rules. This means yes. Okay. So some of you, keep your hands up. So some of you play piano, know Minuet in G. Or some of you children. Those of you who still haven't raised your hands, do you know what children are? I just want to make sure we're on the same page. Okay. So Minuet in G is this amazing little piece of music, and I wanted to play it for you so you would understand this point. So I asked my host this evening, and who was nice enough to invite me, I asked him to bring in a baby grand piano. There were 3 problems. Number 1, apparently, you have something here called budgets. Number 2, there was no way to get it in the room. Number 3, I don't play the piano. But Bach didn't play the piano either, because they weren't even invented till the end of his life. He played the harpsichord, which is like a miniature piano. So I brought a miniature harpsichord. It's in one of my pockets. There it is. And I'm going to play Minuet in G for you. And it goes like this. So I have to let you in on a little secret. Every time I play the harmonica in public and people applaud, I wish my wife was here. Because she is the wonderfulest woman in the world, but not such a big fan of harmonica. All right, so Johann Sebastian Bach, Minuet in G, y'all got it, right? So we're going to go from 1740, Leipzig, Germany, to 1940, Vicksburg, Mississippi, from Johann Sebastian Bach to my personal idol, Sonny Boy Williamson. Now, these guys are as different can be. Sonny Boy Williamson was 6'6". Johann Sebastian Bach, we don't know, but in the pictures he looks kind of short. Sonny Boy wore all black suits because he had been in England. He had played with the Yardbirds and the Animals, and he bought English tailoring. Johann Sebastian Bach, you've seen the pictures. He had kind of like that red velvet suit, like Eddie Munster, right? But they're both composers, and Johann Sebastian Bach wrote a lot of music that you know, and Sonny Boy Williamson wrote a lot of music that you know. And he wrote a piece of music called Peachy Tree. And Peachy Tree sounds like this. Now, I know what you're thinking, which is, why the hell is this guy doing this? I get to the wine. No. What does this have to do with what we're talking about? Well, here's the point. Both of those guys are about as different can be. Tall, short. Sonny Boy Williamson was African American. Johann Sebastian Bach was European. I mean, they're as different can be, right? Both of those pieces of music are different can be. They both use exactly the same 7 notes. Because that's all there is. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti. Speaking of 7 music. And yeah, there's do, but do. Do, it's an octave. It's the same note. Every piece of Western music ever written uses 7 notes. Every photograph ever taken uses a camera and film or digital or whatever. Every video uses video cameras. Every design is done on a computer or with a pen, whatever. We use the same tools. We do the same thing. Yet, all of a sudden, everyone wants to listen to Bruno Mars. Everyone wants to listen to this person. Everyone wants to listen to that person. Why? Because you're not buying what they do, you're buying who they are. What you exchange for money is the music, the CD, the download, the MP3, it doesn't matter. But what you're buying is a little bit of them. And if you put a little bit of you into everything you do, and put a little bit of your clients into everything they do, that's when the world changes. And you do that with 3 words. All about them. Thank you. It's all yours.
Questions?
Yes.
So the big fat car key has nothing to do with Mercedes wanting to sell that item for $250.
Perhaps it does. The new Porsche key, actually looks like the car. If it wasn't $300, I would buy one to show people in the speech. So can you imagine a guy buys a $200,000 car and then he's on the phone like, yeah, baby. But when you take it out of your pocket, you're not even taking out the logo. You're actually putting the car right on the table. So yeah, I think it is. But it doesn't have to be. It certainly is not because of the electronics inside.
But whose idea was it?
I don't know. They didn't call me.
Was it Mercedes or was it the advertising?
You know what? I don't know. That's a great question. We always tell our clients, we don't change what you do. We change the people's perceptions of what you do. However, once we do that, you might change what you do. And we do go back. We have a big presentation tomorrow, and we have a whole brand study and a whole new logos and new marketing and everything. But then when we do, we say, and by the way, you know what? Y'all could do this and this and this because it now is in line with who we're suggesting you be. So I don't know the answer to that. I'd like to find out. And I don't know that Mercedes was first either. I don't know who first came out with the big honking keys. I don't know. Anybody else? Wendy.
You said that Yes We Can was the 3rd best slogan. What were the first 2?
Number 2 is rinse, lather, repeat. Double shampoo sales in 2 years. 1 word, repeat. Whoever repeated before? You washed your hair, you were done. Now you wash it twice. Number 1, if you get a 4-hour erection, call your physician. Freaking brilliant. And it's in the disclaimer. And here's the truth. I'm not calling my doctor. First of all, he's not my type. But how brilliant is that? Oh, I don't think I can get it up, honey. Well, if you get a 4-hour erection. In a disclaimer. You laugh, but the other side of you is going, yeah, he's kind of right. David, you had a question?
I'm not sure how I follow that, but so what's your advice or experience share around making it all about them? But how do you convince or educate or advocate with your customers to make it about their customers all about them?
You have me come in and talk to you about it. You give them the book. No, the way you do it is, if you get motivational speakers, which I am not, I want to make that very clear, but motivational speakers use a lot of those things like, it's not the size of the dog in the fight, it's the size of the fight of the dog, or your altitude depends on your attitude, and all that crap, right? But one that they say that makes sense, but for a different reason, is they talk about Wayne Gretzky, and everyone's heard it. Wayne Gretzky says, I don't skate to the puck, I skate to where the puck is going to be. Right? And you go, oh yeah, that's great. But you don't sell to what your customers want, you sell to their aspirations. Because if you sell to what they want, they can find other products that do that. But if you understand them so well that you know what their aspirations are, that's when you hit dream stuff. Then you're in Follow the Yellow Brick Road world. And that's where things are different. And so you need to do it for them, and then you show them how to do it for their customers. And I can get you both deals on the book, so.
I already have one in the office.
Yeah, but one's not enough. You have Yes?
When working with your clients, how are you able to find out? You meet a new client, you do a little research, you're trying to find out as much as you can about them. How do you make it about them in your initial conversation and try to figure out
Here's the problem with most of us as creatives. You sit with your client and you solve their problem. You already know the answer, right? A lot of the time. First of all, because you've done this before. Second of all, because, hey, it's what we do. It's like you walk into your doctor's office and you have this rash and it's on my palms. They go, syphilis. If you have a rash on your palms, it's syphilis. I know that because my wife is a nurse practitioner, and she just told me that. So I always wash my hands really well before going. But you know, if I said that, you go, I didn't know that. Well, yeah, because you're not a doctor examining people. So a lot of times we solve the problem right away, and then if we're stupid or young or both, we give them the answer right away, and then they don't want to pay for it. So you learn over time that you got to wait. You have to go back and learn and look and listen. But the other thing you can do is you can ask them, what are you trying to accomplish? We always do a strategy planning session with our clients where I have all these exercises. They're in the book, by the way. You can steal them. We take them through the exercises. Then we come back and say, okay, you said this, therefore, and you said this, and you said that, and here's how we came up with this. And then they came up with it, not you, because it's what they want. First of all, let's face it, if you're really good at creative, you don't create anything anyways. You uncover it. It's already there, right? There's nothing new under the sun. New things are simply combinations of old things. eBay was new, right? They took a bazaar, a flea market, the world's second oldest profession, and they combined it with the internet. Craigslist. Someone just said, oh, classified ads, let's put them online. How about Facebook? You remember in junior high school, slam books? Those little books, and you write, who do you want to kiss, who do you like, and then you fold the pages? That's all Facebook is. You know, what's the great curse today? May your life be half as good as it looks on Facebook. That's all Facebook. Facebook is the kid on the high dive. Hey, look at me, hey, look at me, hey, look at me, hey, look at me. That's all Facebook is. Any of us could have thought of it. Twitter are the notes we passed in class. They had to be short and kind of cryptic, so if the teacher found them, they couldn't read them. We used to write them in Hebrew, in English, but using Hebrew letters. So they was like code. So you're not creating anything anyways. You're simply uncovering it, presenting it in a new way. If you go down and look at the exhibit down there, this German artist painted forests. He did it to talk about the Germans' love of the forest and then how Nazis used the forest, and he used dark colors and all of that. But it's a painting of a forest. The forest was there for 1,000,000 years, right? So the idea is to understand them, understand what they care about, and then show them how you have done this based on who they are, not based on who you are. They're much more attentive if you're talking about them than if you're talking about yourself. I promise. Try it and call me and tell me it worked. And then send me a percentage. Oh, yes.
Do you find it difficult when you're in a position pitching to the assistant of the assistant 3 levels down?
Nope, because I don't do that.
Oh, okay.
We will not do that.
Only wants to solve today's problem, doesn't want to hear about what the people
If we can't meet with the CEO, we will not take the assignment. Because the CEO, he or she is charged with increasing shareholder value. That's why they exist. The CMO is charged with not having too much work so they can go home. Now, we will work with them. We have to work with them. But I want to first meet with the CEO and get their vision and have the CEO say, this is what I want to accomplish. Then you can say to the CMO, look, I'm on your side here. Your boss, she already told me she wants this. So here's how we're going to get you there. But if it's just like we will not work with HR departments. If the HR department or the purchasing department says first you have to come through us, hang up the phone. Because they ain't creative. They're not going to buy good work. And life's too damn short to do crappy work. We have 4 rules now. We started the business with 3 rules. Do work we're proud of, because we have to be proud of it. You say good, who decides if it's good? Right? The client likes it. I think it sucks. It's not good. Do work we're proud of, make a profit, and have fun. I used to believe you had to get 2 out of 3. You don't have fun all the time, granted, but mostly that's what you have to do. We added a 4th rule years ago. Don't work with assholes. That's clients and employees. I don't want divas in the office. I don't want diva clients. And if clients yell at my people in the office, I call them up and I say, look, if you want to yell, yell at me. But if you're going to yell at your account executive who stayed up 2 nights in a row to get that ready for you, this is not going to work. You get to decide that. None of us is getting Bill Gates rich from this business. We do well. We have a good life. But it ain't worth going through all the torture that so many of us go through because we think we have to. So I will not work with those people. Yes?
Earlier you mentioned that it was very important, not necessarily, to more direct them to focus on where they need to go, not what they want in the moment.
Right.
Now, it's very hard when you have a specific project list or a specific accomplishment. They want this, they want it here, this is this color they want. How do you guide them to say the difference between getting to where they want to be, where they think they want to be, versus where you know they need to be?
Okay, so there's a couple techniques. First of all, you can't do that tomorrow if they've handed you that list. You have to have started with the strategy, right? Because it all comes out of strategy. As an art director, I used to just think, hey, I can come up with the best idea, and I want it to look really cool, and I want to use Helvetica. And then as a writer, I thought I would write. But now I'm all about the strategy. What is the strategy going to be? So then you can guide them through it. But you can't just start tomorrow. You have to do what needs to be done, but then say, hey, we want to try something. And we want to map out, and you do an optimal outcome. You say, okay, where do you want to be 5 years from now, or 10 years from now, or if you're Asian, 200 years from now. And if this is where you want to be in 5 years, what do you need to do in 4 years? What do you need to do in 3 years? What do you need to do in 2 years? What do you need to be doing right now? By the way, this is not just for marketing. This is really good for life stuff, too. Because then you can take them through that. The other thing is a more important technique. Nobody teaches it. It's really hard to do, but once you do it, you're going to do it every time. Say no. That's the greatest power you have. No. But I want you to do this. I understand that. We're not going to do it, because if I do, I'm doing you a disservice. It will hurt your business if I do that. I'm sorry. I don't want to work for you tomorrow. I want to work for you for the next 20 years. And so instant gratification is when we leave and after this we go down to a bar and we meet someone and we leave with them. Is that a lifetime plan? You think a lot of people get married off of Tinder or Grindr? Probably not. I don't know. I'm just saying. It's not a lifetime plan. So if you're doing freelance work for them, if you're just doing a project, fine, do it. Do whatever they want. Who cares? And if Louis the loan shark is going to break your knees tomorrow, or they're going to take your house away, or you can't feed your kid, do it. I'm not saying you, of course. I'm not making you. No, but do it. Take the money. That's why we all do this. Otherwise, we'd be doing art that would hang in this museum. If you need it, if it's all about making your car payment to pay for the townhouse and the BMW, do it. But if you want to do something bigger and make more in the longer term, then you got to think bigger. Did I answer your question? I'm a little bit passionate about this. I'm sorry.